Welcome to the Berea Podcast. This is Troy.
This is Della.
And here we are, the fourth installment of the four-part series from the 2018 Creative Work presentations that were held at Native Bagel Company here in Berea. To review, presented to you Courtney Howard, talking about social media. Allie Blair, talk about her history and her passion for local music. And Laura Paulette and her life as an artist. Today, the speaker is from outside Berea. But why I'm including him in this series will make sense in just a second. Today's presentation is from Andy Salmons. He is from Corbin, Kentucky. He formerly was the main street manager for Corbin, but also is co-owner and operator at You and Me Coffee and Tea in downtown Corbin, as well as a new venture named Field Guide Digital. Oh, well, let me go ahead and tell you why we're sharing someone from Corbin. On March 9th, this coming Saturday, Corbin is hosting Eastern Kentucky's first TEDx event. So just Google TED, T-E-D, the letter X, Corbin, and it'll take you right there. Or in our show notes, simply go to thebereapodcast.com/Andy, A-N-D-Y, Salmons, S-A-L-M-O-N-S, and there'll be all kinds of links there for you. But it's a pretty big deal. And Berea is well represented. Berea's own Dreama Gentry and May Ceramek will be taking the stage throughout the day. Now here's what's funny. I believe the event is sold out. It was ticketed. So maybe find some secondhand tickets out there. But they should present recordings of all of the talks. So make sure to be aware of that anytime after the 9th. So that's exciting. So let's listen to Andy talk about the growth in downtown Corbin. Sit back, relax, and enjoy.
Thanks, Andy.
All right, yeah, thank you. We're going to keep it pretty informal today, too, and definitely leave plenty of room for talking at the end. I want to hear about what you all have going on, and I want to talk about Berea. I'm really curious. I've heard a lot about some of the activity that you guys have got going. It's exciting. I'm really excited for Berea. I've been a big fan of all the work you all have done here for a while. I've worked with Mason and a few others, so it's really great that you all have so much going on. So let me tell you a little bit about myself first. So my name is Andy Salmons. I'm the owner of You and Me Coffee and Tea. I was one of the founders of the Wrigley Tap Room in downtown Corbin, and I'm also the director of downtown Corbin, which technically my position has changed a little. I'm the projects coordinator and director of small business development now, but I still do downtown work as well, right? And so like every entrepreneur, I've got a well-crafted origin story that's 25% embellishment and 75% spot on. But ever since I was a little kid, I always loved the idea of business. It was just something fascinating to me. And one of my first experiences as an entrepreneur was when I was in the 8th grade. Everybody in my class was obsessed with these like trick yo-yos. I don't know if you all remember those. You could like put them on the string and they'd keep spinning. And so I found a dollar store that was selling these yo-yos, right? And I bought them all for $1 and sold them to my classmates for $8, $10. You know, it was great. All out of my locker in 8th grade. And that's when the bug hit me. I'm like, wow, this is great. I can turn $1 into 10. This is fantastic. And so that kind of informed, kind of the rest of my life, to be honest with you. I ended up going to the University of Kentucky, where I dropped out I was in the film program there, and I did not finish it. I ended up moving to South America to work on a documentary film project. I moved to Brazil. I was going to stay for 6 months. I ended up staying for 5 years, and it was there that I really got serious about business. Once I was there, the documentary film was a total flop, by the way, so you'll never see it. It doesn't exist. But the great thing was I met a really cool group of young, entrepreneurially minded people in a city where this was just starting to take shape. A lot of business had been owned by a much older generation, and so there weren't a lot of young people getting into things, and it was just starting to happen. So I ended up founding a web and graphic design company there called Ion Innovations. We ran that for all the way up, actually, until I ended up moving back to the U.S. I swore that I would never come back to America. I loved it so much. And then I ended up back in my hometown, of all places, which is Corbin, right? A lot of that was because we, as a business, kind of ran into a lot of bureaucratic corruption in South America, and I just wasn't into it. So I ended up moving back. When I moved back to Corbin, I had an idea of what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to buy a building. No matter what, I wanted to buy a building and renovate it. When I lived in Brazil, there were kind of a couple things that had happened. One, I'd become obsessed with the HGTV show. I forget the name of it now. Income Property, right? That show, I love that show, and so I was like, I'm going to get an income property, you know. So I was looking for a building, and as I was looking for a building, the local coffee shop went out of business, right? And I was like, I love coffee. Man, if I get a building, I'm going to put a coffee shop in it. And I'm going to do it the way I want to do it, right? And so I was searching, hunting. A building became available. And beautiful two-story building in downtown Corbin. I knew I wanted to live above it. I knew I wanted some other rental properties in the building. And I knew I wanted to do a coffee shop downstairs. And so that began the whole process of basically trying to figure out how I was going to pay for all of this, right? And the rules of the one rule of entrepreneurship that I always tell people is that when you're getting started, if you're looking for money, really, you're looking for the 3 F's of investing, right? You're looking for friends, families, and fools who are willing to give you money. And luckily, I had friends and family that were foolish enough to put a little in my pocket, and so we were able to kind of bootstrap You and Me Coffee and Tea. At the same time, on another note, the director of downtown Corbin had just left that position. She had ended up it didn't work out, so she ended up not working for the city any longer. Oh, come on in. Hey, how's it going? Yeah. So that position had become vacant, right? And when I lived in Brazil, I became obsessed with urban planning. So I'm a nerd, right? And as a nerd, like, we go down these rabbit holes of ideas. And the particular idea of how to create a city that was enjoyable, livable, walkable, all this stuff, I was so obsessed with it because where I lived, it was a really nice neighborhood in a really poor city, right? And there was no infrastructure at all for pedestrians. And I didn't own a car for the entire 5 years I lived there. I found myself walking most places. And so to get anywhere, to access public transportation was such a pain, right? And so I started thinking to myself, there's got to be a better way. I'm looking at some like European cities and thinking like, wow, there's, amazing models of urbanism, and it's just not happening here. So I started studying people like Han Gell and Project for Public Spaces and William White and all these great urban planners. It's just, I went so deep down this rabbit hole. I got involved in a community, like a neighborhood organization that was trying to get like sidewalks and better parks and things like that. And so when I moved back to Kentucky, come on in. Yeah, how's it going? So when I moved back to Corbin, that position became vacant, and I just wanted to do it so bad. I had all these ideas floating in my head. I had no idea that I would ever be able to apply them. It was just something I wanted to do. And so I went down to City Hall for days and days and days and just pestered the crap out of them until they hired me, right? And at the time, that position, it was a part-time position. I had some other things going on, so I didn't really care. It had a $15,000 budget, and that was downtown Corbin. It had a vacancy rate of 40%. We had no budget, and they really didn't believe in the position or trust even that anybody could do anything with it, right? And so, again, as an entrepreneur, I was like, I have to put my money where my mouth is. If I'm going to tell people to invest in downtown Corbin, I need to set the tone. So that's when we, again, really set into building You and Me Coffee and Tea. We wanted to make sure that it was a place where the community could get together, where ideas could percolate. Kind of that whole cafe experience had been a big part of my life in Brazil. I wanted to make sure that that was here in Corbin, where I was at the time. And so yeah, we built this place and we did all these things. I knew I wanted to work with local farmers, even though I didn't really know anything about that at the time. I knew that I wanted to work with local musicians and local artists. We wanted stuff on the walls. We wanted music. So we did music every Friday and Saturday night. And I just put a call out there. I was like, hey, musicians, we need you. Like, come hang out with us and come play music for us. And over time, we developed this really kind of fun, cool community of artists and farmers and passionate people that cared about the town, right? And so my experience as an entrepreneur has always influenced the economic development work that I've done, right? I never jived with the kind of bureaucratic approach to downtown development. As a matter of fact, when I started my job, we were a part of the state Main Street program, and it has its benefits. Definitely, it's kind of a toolkit for towns trying to get things started. But I was looking at Corbin, and I was seeing our community and what made us unique, and I was seeing some of the things that they were encouraging us to do, and the two didn't add up. They didn't jive, right? So that's when we decided to kind of break away and really do our own thing. One of the first things we did, and again, as an entrepreneur, this seems so obvious to me, is we rebranded, right? So I had no money. I had nothing. I had no resources to do anything with. So we decided that we wanted to have as much impact as possible. So we rebranded and we put together these events downtown called Moonbow Nights. So Corbin is the home, actually Cumberland Falls is the home of the Moonbow, the only nocturnal rainbow that happens on the full moon, right? And so we wanted to leverage this kind of natural asset. And so we started an event, Moonbow Nights. We invited these great bands. And for the first one, we marketed the crap out of it on social media, and nobody showed up, maybe like 20 people. But that didn't matter, because me being an entrepreneur and a marketer, I was like, how do we spin this? So I put them all together, like got them all in front of the stage and started taking all these pictures, and it made it look like there was a huge crowd and everybody was having a great time, right? So we were totally faking it until we made it, right? So I threw that up on Facebook, said, oh, this is awesome. If you missed it, you really missed out, but there's another one next month. So come, and what do you know? The next time around, more people came, right? So eventually, the thing that we were faking became reality. And honestly, that's been the biggest approach ever, because I don't have an actual degree or background in this. Like, we've just been faking it until we make it, and it's worked. I had an idea of where we wanted to go, and just like when you're starting a business, you have an idea of what you want to do. It doesn't exist. You find a way to make it happen, right? So downtown Corbin, again, when I started, our vacancy rate was around 40%. So lots of empty buildings. No one had a good perception of downtown Corbin. The idea was, if you were down there, that's where, you're going down there because it's cheap rent, and basically businesses die down there, right? And we wanted to prove that wrong. I was invested. I had a building down there now. I had a business down there. I was determined to make sure that people knew it was a cool place to be. So we did our marketing. We did our events. The third thing we did, and this was a real break from kind of the official line of Main Street and everything, is that we didn't put any emphasis at all on making everything look pretty, right? Downtown Corbin's a gritty railroad town. We got thrown up overnight in like 1905. Everything just kind of popped up out of a swamp, right? And so our history is like hobos and like bars and things like, and so I was like, okay, we don't need to worry about making everything look pretty. Plus, our urban fabric had been largely destroyed in the 1960s and 70s. We've lost almost 70% of our building stock. Downtown Corbin, the core of it used to have 30,000 people living there, right? Now it's got like 8,200, and we've got 70% less buildings than we used to in the downtown, right? So knowing that we've had fires and floods and things have been torn down and things have been rebuilt, and there's architecture from the 20s, the 40s, the 60s, the 80s, knowing that, like, the traditional approach of, oh, let's make everything look Victorian and perfect, it wasn't going to work, right? So we completely abandoned the whole idea of let's work on facades and renovate these buildings, and let's focus on the one thing that I know how to focus on, which is entrepreneurs. So we wanted to make sure that anybody that had any idea for a business had all all the support they could possibly get. We helped them with branding. We helped them with business planning. We helped them with getting their finances together. We helped them negotiate leases. We worked with property owners. We had some property owners that were so stubborn. They had sat on buildings for generations. They were not going to budge. They wanted an exorbitant amount of money for them. And so we began to systemically kind of poke at them and annoy them and sometimes fine them for anything we could until they budged, right? And currently our vacancy rate is right around 5% in downtown Corbin. So that approach has been very, very successful for us. And honestly, for a community like Berea, I know that you all have great resources here, great entrepreneurial community, and you've got Mason and a few others. It's really a great approach for you all to take, and I kind of see it happening organically without anybody top down saying this is how it should happen, right? Which gives me a lot of hope for Berea. I see you guys with ideas filling in these vacant spaces, not necessarily worried about, does this building look perfect? No, it doesn't matter. You've got cool stuff going on, and then the buildings will come, which is the next step for us in downtown Corbin. We have the entrepreneurs. We've got the business community. On a Tuesday night, it's busy, and you can't find parking. Like, we've done that part. The next part is to make things look the way we want them to, right? So, yeah.
I think the crucial part is when you were supporting entrepreneurs with branding and really strengthening their businesses, that was through downtown Portland.
Yeah.
So is that city funded?
Yeah, so sure, and we'll do a bunch of questions about this stuff because again, our approach is very different than a lot of communities. But my job, again, it is a city-funded job. Maybe a bit more about that. Again, it started part-time with like 15 grand. Within less than a year, actually within 6 months, it became a full-time position because we already saw things happening very quickly, and now I've got a budget of like $240,000. So it's really good. Yeah, they really believe in what we're doing now. It's been fantastic. Honestly, all the administrations that I've worked with, which several city commissions, and we're getting a new mayor this time around. So it's been really great to have the support of the community in what we do. So again, my work as an entrepreneur has always informed my approach with the city, and it's so frustrating. And anybody that's trying to do this sort of work with their community, you've got to have patience, and I don't have it. It's been so hard. I'm an entrepreneur. I have an idea. I figure out how to pay for it. I make it happen. Like, it's just this really linear thing, and with the city, it's you've got an idea. Okay, cool. Everybody craps on that idea. Okay, and then like you finally convince them, but then no one wants to pay for it, right? And then you finally figure out a way to pay for it, and everybody gets cold feet. And then years later, things start to happen, right? So now we're at a phase in downtown Corbin where our entrepreneurs are there. Economic activity is happening, so we're trying to support that now by doing streetscape renovations, and we want to help business owners and building owners in particular now begin to think about facade renovations and making things look the way that they need to. We just wrapped up a master plan study. It literally finished up last week, so that was great. That's it's been like my life's work for 5 years, and it's finally done. We've done a wayfinding study, so we've got a whole sign package we're getting ready to submit to the state. It's been a really, really challenging but fun opportunity, and and so here we are, 5 years later, and full Main Street. Thanks to the hard work, and this has not been a singular effort by any means. We did dismantle our committees that were downtown, but instead of having committees, we ended up pushing to have other people that were interested just get involved where they saw fit and phase in and phase out as they wanted to. That way no one got burnt out and no one felt obligated to just keep doing the sort of repetitive work. So that's kind of Corbin in a nutshell. That's what I do in a nutshell. That's my business mindset in a nutshell. I'm going to open up to you guys. I'd love to talk to you all, and maybe some of the experiences that I've had or the work that we've done can help you guys, or maybe I can learn from you all as well. So.
Okay, I want to thank the folks at Native Bagel for allowing me to use these recordings. These are their recordings that, again, they've allowed me to use, and encourage you to go to Cloosiv, CLOOSIV. Download that app. I used it just today at lunchtime. Walked straight in, got my bagels, and walked out super easy. Thanks so much for listening. Until next time.
Bye.